We celebrate the Feast of the Trinity today. And I know I'm not here to give a lecture today on how the three are one and one are three and all that, and look at the clover and all that. That really doesn't do much for me. I mean, I don't know. I know some people might like it. It's a nice intellectual thing to think about. But I'm really thinking about the impact of the Trinity and how it really impacts us. We are created in the image of God. And that image of God is a community. That image of God. And we are created in that image, created in community. Matter of fact, we don't exist without relationship. We're always in community, whether we realize it or not. We do not exist on our own. We exist only in God. Now, God has given us freedom and autonomy to reject the relationship, but the fact is, God is still sustaining us. And it is rather an illusion to think that we are somehow separate. Now, we can say no to community, but God shows us how community works. And how community works, we see in the Trinity, is that we see each person in the Trinity pouring themselves out into the other. That's how real community works. It's not withholding, but giving and pouring into each other and emptying out of one another into the other. That's how community works. Real community. And I think about that real community and how we are to be pouring ourselves out, and that's the scary part. Because it's scary because if we are to live in the Trinity, we are to pour ourselves out. And we're scared that if we empty ourselves, there will be nothing left. But in pouring ourselves out, like the Trinity, it's about trusting that God will empty himself into us as we pour ourselves out into him, into others. Of course, you have to take a leap of faith to know that. And withholding, when we withhold, we will never know the power and the joy and the peace. We were created to be in community. That is our fulfillment. And our separation and alienation from one another only leads to so many disease, so much disease in our life. So many what I've described as mental illness. Isolation brings that about. We're not happy when we're isolated and alienated. And it's only when we give ourselves in community that we find joy. It's about emptying ourselves out. And, when I was a young priest, young in my ministry, there was this priest friend of mine, and He scared me. He frightened me because he was always giving so much of himself. And, I said to him, if you keep doing that, there's going to be nothing left of you. And then he said the most scariest words I ever heard. He said, that's the plan. A real challenge to my ego and what I thought life was supposed to be about. Now, the real challenge with community, what keeps us from community, is tribalism. When we keep to our little groups, it starts with our family and our relatives. And it's important to have a strong family, don't get me wrong. But when you really look at what Jesus did when it came to be an adult, he blew up the nuclear family in the ways that he acted. Remember his mother and his siblings, brothers and sisters, coming to him to get him. And what did Jesus say? He looked at them and he looked at the crowd and he said to the crowd, those of you who do the will of God, you are my brothers and my sisters and my mothers. See, we are under the illusion that we are not connected to one another. We are under that illusion. We are all connected to one another. And how we treat another person is really about how we treat ourselves. We have our little tribes that we exclude other people with. It starts with our family, then it goes to our relatives, and then it goes to St. George or St. Dominic, or it goes to city or county, or it goes to Republican, I'm Democrat, or I'm black, or I'm white. Tribalism leads into racism. And the challenge is to push beyond that tribalism and to pour ourselves out into the larger community as Jesus was trying to show us. Am I still St. George, or am I still St. Dominic at this point? Or am I willing to pour myself into John Paul II? To welcome others, to put up with the hardship and ridicule of other people who don't want to move forward. There's going to be hardship and ridicule to make us one. It's going to be a challenge. Or am I still Republican, or am I still Democrat? Can I see beyond the platforms? Are you really completely Republican or completely Democrat? Can I see beyond the platform and instead discuss the issues? Challenge to see that, to pour ourselves out. Our country is so divided. And we have to step back and see what we agree on together. Or when it comes to what has happened, the racism in our country. I know a lot of people who are talking about the violence of the protests and how wrong it is. I agree with them. It is absolutely wrong. But I see a lot of people pointing fingers at that, but they're not doing anything else to make things better. They're just calling out what is wrong. Tisk, tisk. As opposed to what are we doing to build up equality and peace and nonviolence. I'm not saying I have an answer. Only you can answer to that yourselves as to what you can do. But those are our brothers and sisters out there. Don't fall for the illusion that we're not connected. You are as connected to that person as you are connected to your son and daughter and brother and sister. That's how connected you are. How we are connected. Let's build community instead of division. And let it see what it takes. Jesus faced ridicule and hardship to work at unity, and we should not be surprised that it's going to be hard. But when we're on that path, we know the truth, and we know a greater peace when we are doing that.